Welcome to the Wolves Squad Show. I'm Sam Ekstrom, and today gave me a chance to revisit some of the most random Timberwolves triple-doubles of all time.
I'm Parker Fox, KFAN and the Big Ten Network, and thank goodness we have Ayo Dosunmu. He's going to be the key piece in this playoff run.
Julia Daniels, Care 11 sports anchor and reporter. Should we be concerned about the Wolves' injury right now? We're going to talk about it.
I'm Jack Borman, co-host of the Locked On Wolves postcast with my man Luke Inman, and I think we might have the key for Julius Randle's defense in the best matchups for him moving forward.
This is Locked On's Wolves Squad Show, the twice-a-week show where Timberwolves talk gets real. No filters, no fluff. Just raw takes, sharp opinions, and straight-up passion for the game. The way only Locked On Podcast Network knows how. Let's drop some dimes and squad up. The Wolves Squad Show starts now.
What's up and welcome in. Happy Tuesday afternoon. Wolves Squad Show on the #1 sports podcast network, streaming on Locked On Wolves. Plenty to get to today off a Wolves 30-point win in Dallas. Ayo Dosunmu goes off for a triple-double. Anthony Edwards returns, but a setback in Jaden McDaniels' recovery. How is health going to impact the Timberwolves down the stretch and into the playoffs? Also, a pretty generous Wolves sighting in the Ringer's top 100, and ESPN rips the Wolves bench scoring. What's going on there? That's all coming up on today's Wolves Squad Show. You met Jack, Julia, Parker, and myself. Let's dive right in. T-Wolves and Mavs. This felt like a loser-proof game. It was a loser-proof game. Timberwolves win 124-94. They've clinched a third straight season with a winning road record. That's pretty cool. But the star, overshadowing the return of Anthony Edwards, I would argue, Ayo Dosunmu goes off for 18, 15, and 12. His second career triple-double, a plus 30 in the box, Parker. You love this guy. You've been talking up this guy. And give him more minutes. Get him on ball. Let him dish the ball. Let him score. He did it all last night.
Yeah, I think last night really showed that, right, Sam, is the ability that Ayo has to, quote-unquote, do it all. I think he's a multifaceted type of player. I highlighted his transition game. I think that's obviously a very important part of his game. We saw it come into fruition last night, pushing the pace, capitalizing on deflections, steals, turnovers, loose balls, rebounds, like getting out in transition. I think that can continue to be a key of this Wolves offense. When Rudy Gobert or Julius Randle grabs that ball off the rim, let's find that outlet. There's a dash in the court. We always learned growing up, like the point guard has to go to that dash. That's the coach's box, and he has to find that outlet and then reverse and get it up the court. And I think that's something that we can really utilize from Ayo Dosunmu. We had it in Mike Conley a little bit as well throughout his career here with the Timberwolves, and now we've seen kind of Mike slowly go down with his speed and some of his strength. And but here comes Ayo Dosunmu, and here comes the twin turbos with Bones Highland as well, as they're calling them. So I loved his game. And then I thought last night something that we haven't seen too much, but I think it's a big part of Ayo's game is his rebounding ability. 15 boards last night. I think that was something that maybe it's not going to be 15 over and over again, but if he can find his way into double digits or high single digits, that's only an asset for this Timberwolves team, especially on the offensive glass as well, if he's able to create extra possessions. And then the thing that I love the most is 18 points but on 13 shots, 8 for 13 from the floor, knocked down a 3. I think that continual consistency and being a plus 30, yeah, granted it's against this team, the Dallas Mavericks, and like you said, it was a foolproof type of game, but nonetheless, if Ayo can continue to be consistent throughout his approach, it doesn't need to be high triple doubles every game, but if you can consistently have points, have rebounds, and have assists, you're helping his Wolves offense. And I think that's something that can only supplement what Anthony Edwards is going to continue to bring this Wolves offense.
Yeah, you mentioned twin turbos, and Julia, that feels like an element that at its worst the past couple of years, when the Timberwolves half-court offense was at its worst, it felt a little bit congested, a little bit clogged up. The ball was stopping, maybe with Ant, maybe with Julius. Yeah. And the fast break that Ayo can trigger, it injects something. Even if the half court's not working, it gives you some pace when you desperately need it. I think that could be really useful in the playoffs when it becomes a little more of a half court game, to still have the ability to get north and south.
Yeah, and I mean, Finchie said post game that he liked Ayo's speed paired with his patience, and he said that he thought they played with some of their best rhythm that they have played with in the past few weeks, and I think that it's not a coincidence that Ayo had the minutes that he had last night, and they had some of their best rhythm that they've had in a long time. And so I think you're totally right in saying, like, give this guy some more minutes, especially as you get closer to the playoffs, and also as you're trying to, handle some of the injuries that they're dealing with right now. You've got a guy like Ayo. I know he has that calf soreness that he's kind of dealing with, but it's not. I mean, if you can't give Ant the minutes that maybe he probably wants at the time, because what did he play, 22 minutes last night or something like that, then absolutely you have a guy that's going to step up and give your offense better rhythm than they have had while Ant's out there. I mean, that's also something to take into consideration with how much you're utilizing him too. But I think it's just something. I don't know if we have enough material on Ayo to say that he can be consistent in that sense, but I think that we've seen his trajectory just even when he was with the Bulls before, that he was headed towards being a player like this. And now it seems like he's peaking, and he's just more motivated by every performance headed into each night. And given the opportunities that he's been given the past few weeks, we're seeing the Wolves play their best offense while he's on the floor. And so, yeah, I think this is something that I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of him moving forward, despite what is going on injury wise with Ant. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Words I would use to describe him, Jack: dogged, rugged, functional, like good playoff qualities, same with like DiVincenzo. I view as a guy that's going to dive on the floor for a loose ball. Same with Ayo. He's going to defend at a high level. He's going to work his butt off. And we haven't really seen him get these high leverage opportunities. I think he was in one playoff series like 4 years ago with the Bulls in his rookie season. The Bulls were mediocre. I think it was one and done. Haven't really gotten to see him at this level in big games. He may have, another level to unlock still, because he feels like a playoff player.
He sure does. And I think the other part of it too with Ayo Dosunmu is that I think we definitely saw him as a player that would fit in nicely in those minutes with Julius Randle and Reid, just considering his defensive acumen. But I think what's impressed me the most about Ayo has been how well he's fit and paired alongside Rudy Gobert, right? I think outside of Mike Conley and Jaden McDaniels, I don't think that there's anybody who has a better relationship on the floor with Rudy Gobert than Ayo Dosunmu does. And that was something, that I spoke with Ayo about, a couple weeks back, just asking him like, hey, what do you think has led to that or fueled that? And he just said, he was a guy that when I got here, I really sought out because, I understood that Rudy's a really, impactful player when he's used, and that if I'm going to be out there with him, we got to figure out ways to use him. And I think that's also something that will be a really important part of this Timberwolves playoff push and playoff just performance overall as a team. Just is how well they're going to be able to use Rudy Gobert, and we saw that in that Lakers series. Rudy Gobert was fantastic, and I think that the Wolves just have to do their best to be able to incorporate him in the flow of the offense. And Ayo Dosunmu has done a fantastic job of that, a significantly better job than Donte DiVincenzo at that. And that makes sense, just because I think is more of a point guard than Donte DiVincenzo is. But I think he's also making a real argument too, Sam, of when you think about who's going to close games in the playoffs. I think that he's going to make that conversation pretty difficult for the Timberwolves coaching staff, in large part because of what we've seen him be able to do without Anthony Edwards, and that can be a really capable trusted hand with the ball, but also be that guy that can dive on the floor and make all those types of plays that you need at the end of the game, mixed with being a guy that can kind of fully take advantage of every other guy on the floor skill set. And so I think for Ayo, it's been a ton of fun to watch. And I think we've seen so many Timberwolves games over the years where we see opponents just fly up the floor and score easy buckets all the time, and kind of ask ourselves, man, the Wolves have all these athletic guys. Why can't they do that themselves? And that's something that, Ayo and Bones too have done an exceptional job of. And it's been a ton of fun to watch, and I don't see any reason why it's going to slow down anytime soon.
And you're implying that you think in place of Dante, Ayo could be the playoff closer. Is that your assertion?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, the Timberwolves obviously have the luxury of being able to kind of play the hot hand when it comes to those two guys. I think that they provide different skill sets that, obviously no two games are ever going to be the same, and may call for different skill sets depending on how things go. But with the way that Ayo's played, I think that there's certainly merit to building an argument that he should be the guy that's closing over Dante, or maybe be a guy that you could close and go small with and play Jaden at the 4 or something like that.
All right, guessing game off of Ayo Dosumu's triple-double. That was the 44th Timberwolves triple-double in team history. That goes back to 1989. So, Parker, you go first. 44 triple-doubles since 1989 in that same time span. Where does that rank among all 30 teams in the league? 44 triple-doubles.
Oh, gosh. I mean, it has to be pretty low. I'm going to go with third to last.
So 28th. Okay, Julia.
28th.
You're muted.
Julia.
I'm going to go 25th. 25th.
All right, touch higher. Jack?
Give me dead last, Sam.
So I went into this. I said this in our group text earlier. Man, 44 seems low. You've got Kevin Garnett with 16, and then a big drop, and then Rubio is second with 5. T-Wolves just haven't had a triple-double guy. So I was expecting low. The answer is 23rd. 23rd in the league.
Wow, I win.
I think
You're
Julia
closest.
wins.
Dang it.
Applause
Who's dead last?
for Julia.
Do we know who dead last
Oh, I've
is?
got it. I
had a little faith.
Okay.
What do you like to guess? Who's in last? I think you'll be surprised.
The Knicks.
The Knicks are actually 25th, very low. And when you think about the dudes they had in the 90s, that's pretty shocking. But it's not the Knicks. It's a team that was really good in the 90s also and had Hall of Famers. And it's last by a pretty good margin.
Wow. Houston?
Probably not because of James Harden.
Yeah, Harden.
Portland?
Yeah, Houston is 6th. Portland is 29th. Very good guess. I'll give you the answer. The answer is Utah with 11.
How do we not guess Utah?
Wow.
Like that should have been the first guess we thought of. Of course.
I was thinking Andre Karolinko might have had a
47.
A Mickey Mouse March run where he put together a few.
The mailman wasn't delivering enough mail to his teammates.
It's true.
I guess Stockton was taking up all the dimes.
I guess.
Do you want to guess who's first? Since 1989.
OKC.
Oh, you said okay. I'm sorry. You said OKC.
I would go with OKC just because
they are. Because Russ had those incredible seasons, and they are second with 185.
Oh,
the Bucks.
The Bucks are in the middle somewhere. They have 83, and they are at like 9th. I'll give you one more. Julia, hazard a guess.
Oh.
Who gets a lot? Let me give you a hint. I think a lot of these triple doubles have come in the last decade.
Oh.
The Nuggets?
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
Well, let's go. 2 for 2, baby.
It's a good day to be Julia Daniels.
I think, Jack, you were probably thinking Giannis, right? When you said the Bucks and you just missed
Oscar Robertson plus Giannis. I thought that there would be enough between them. And Lou Alcindor at the time, too.
True.
Yeah, Jokic. I don't know how many were Jokic, but I went through the whole, scrolling down the list, I saw those letters a lot. Nikola Jokic. So the Nuggets, and it's not really that close. The Nuggets at 228, the Thunder at 185. T-Wolves
No.
down at 44. And I can't believe that Kevin Love, as good a passer he was and as many double-doubles as he had, that he didn't fall into more triple-doubles. He had 3 in his career. That I could not believe that, because he was not a bad passer. The outlet pass he was known for. But that one, that surprised me, Parker, that Kevin Love had 3.
I was going to say there clearly wasn't enough full court outlet passes to be had within a game for Kevin Love to crack that record. Yeah, that one scares me. There's definitely enough double doubles. I'm sure. I remember my days of sitting in Target Center and simply, just cheering on Kevin Love to get as many rebounds as he possibly could, and hoping that he would have 20 and 20 every game. But that one surprises me that there wasn't more assists. I guess blame his teammates, right? It's not Kevin's fault. The guys weren't making enough shots.
It's not Kevin's fault, guys.
Corey Brewer, knock down more jumpers, man. Let's go.
Yeah, why did you only have 51 one game or whatever it was? I was at that game too as well, and I was there with my family. We're like, what is going on? Corey Brewer has 50 points. Like, there's something mad happening inside Target Center.
My favorite part about that game was that all of them were just like wild transition layups that had no business going in.
Yeah, he had like 8-step travel on one that was not called. It was fantastic.
More random than the Corey Brewer 51-point game is the triple-double on this list that I'm just scratching my head. Shabazz Napier.
Yeah, Baz.
Like, not Shabazz Muhammad, the other Baz. Shabazz Napier.
Wow.
I think it was like a 10, 10, and 10. It was like the minimum triple-double. But this was 6 years ago, 2020. Maybe look that up during the break. Shabazz Napier, the most random Wolves triple-double of all time. I'll give him that.
10 points, 10 rebounds, 13 assists.
Okay, so he did a little more than the minimum. Yeah,
just 3 more assists.
I think that might have been the Chris Paul jersey untucked game.
Oh,
versus OKC,
if I remember right. I could be wrong. Maybe that was the other game they had played against OKC.
Did it go to OT?
It did not. So it was not. No.
Okay.
That was a crazy season, though.
Minnesota lost that game 113-104.
Yeah, we just need to bring some UConn love into this podcast out there in the Final Four.
Yeah, not enough going well for them right now.
Yeah, right.
Let's. The Wolves still have injury concerns. They did get Ayo back, big impact. They did get Ant back a minute later than they expected, but he did make a good impact too. We'll dive into their health when we return. We are brought to you today by 5 Hour Energy. Had a little bit of a delay there. Apologies for that. 5 Hour Energy shots. There are 18 different flavors to choose from. There's new options as well, like confetti craze, fruity rainbow, cotton candy. It's something for everybody. But I'll tell you who my number one pick in the 5 Hour Energy shot draft is going to be. And it's going to be blue raspberry. I think I've gone to that well before, and I keep going back because it's such a classic. 5 Hour Energy gives you all the flavors, all the options, and they give you a boost with 0 sugar. 5 Hour Energy has a lot of upcoming flavor innovations planned as well, so they're just going to increase your options and ways that you can consume the product. Find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots available at 5hourenergy.com and Amazon. Make sure you're checking out Locked On Wolves, Ben Beacon as well. 30-minute daily dose, Timberwolves basketball. Subscribe here on YouTube. Find the audio free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Good news, bad news for Timberwolves health. Ayo back. Talked about his impact. Anthony Edwards makes his return. Did not start. I think he just wanted to juice up the bench scoring numbers, to be honest. Ant comes off the bench having a little, nature calls, as Coach Finch said, and he joined the game a minute and 1 second late. But Ant had a really good impact in his return. Jaden McDaniels, though, is week to week. Let me get the medical terminology correct. Left patella tendinopathy and a bone bruise. He told us it was cramping. It is not cramping. A little more serious than that. So he's week to week. They're trying to gear him up for the playoffs. So Julia, concerns about now the building list of players that are banged up. Nas has got the ankle and the shoulder, and Ayo's got the calf, and Jaden and Ant. The list is growing longer.
Yeah. Just if anybody was wondering what tendinopathy is, it's according to Google, a common, often chronic overuse injury causing tendon pain, stiffness, and weakness, usually resulting from repetitive strain rather than acute inflammation, which is like what tendinitis is. So, just in case anybody was wondering what that was. I mean, it's concerning. I think we might not even see him at the start of the playoffs, if I remember correctly. But I do think it's encouraging, despite what that ESPN article says, I do think it's encouraging that we have seen this team step up when guys are out anyways. And I think also something that's encouraging is like watching, a couple games here in the last 7 days, seeing how Julius Randle steps up defensively when Jaden McDaniels isn't out there is a little bit encouraging. Again, another one of those instances where we don't necessarily have enough material on the subject to say that that's exactly how things are going to go every time he's not out there. But at least we know he can do it. I think Ant could be, and I'm not going to speak for him and he hasn't said this, but I do think that there is obviously the context of there is NBA awards on the line should he not be out there for the last 6 games of the regular season. So that could be encouraging for him to finish out the regular season while also kind of towing the line of like taking care of yourself before the playoffs happen. So that's something that I think could be a potential concern moving forward. I know we talked about Ayo's calf soreness. It's just kind of how the puzzle pieces all fall together too, or how the dominoes fall in terms of like the timing of when these things are going to be bothering these guys. And they're just going to have to figure out how to handle the workload here towards the end so that they are best prepared for the playoffs. I don't think anything, just from my perspective, I don't think it's anything to necessarily like freak out about, especially because like I said before, like they know how to fill these holes. Like look at how they played in a lot of these games with Ant out here recently. They've figured out ways to step up. They're already doing it here in the regular season. So I also think something like moving forward, just having Ayo like perform the way that he is. Obviously, we talked about maybe seeing that and having more minutes. But I don't think it's all in all not something that I would be terribly concerned about if I was a Wolves fan. I think the Jaden injury is something that's obviously not ideal. But it's not like it's something crazy. They're telling us exactly what it is. And it's something that seems to be more of it's bothering him type of thing and not something that is it's kind of like a how you handle it type of situation, it seems like.
Yeah, Jack, it does seem like because of how the standings sit right now, the Wolves might have the luxury of not having to have guys push through here down the stretch. I was crunching some numbers. Just to catch Denver for home court, if Denver goes 3-3 and they've got 2 loser-proof games, they've got 2 that are unlosable, in my opinion, then if they go 3-3, so in those non-loser-proof games, they have to lose, 3 out of the 4. Wolves would have to go 6-1. Like it's going to be tough to beat Denver, and they're 4 clear of Phoenix. So do you think they're in a position where they're not going to press that hard down the stretch to allow guys to recover?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Wolves are going to do what's most important, which is making sure that they have their full collection of guys ready to go when they do enter the postseason. And I think the good thing, obviously, is that the Wolves, are pretty much locked up a top 6 seed, which will get them that week off before the playoffs start and after the regular season ends during that time that's allotted for the play-in tournament. So I think they're going to be really smart about it. And I think that, the nice thing is that sometimes when players do get injured, you kind of have the ability to move some pieces around the chessboard a little bit and get a look at some different matchups and lineups together that, can provide a look that you can use to steal 3 or 4 minutes in a playoff game, down the line. And I think that it's also going to be, interesting from my perspective too, to look at Julius Randle specifically without Jaden McDaniels, potentially for the rest of the regular season. I think that you'll continue to see Ayo Dosunmu guard kind of the lead perimeter options. But if you have some bigger ball handlers like we saw last night with Cooper Flagg, or some burlier forwards or centers that you can put Julius Randle on, that allow him to use his two best attributes, which are his physicality and his hands and his strength, I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on as well, because I think we saw that last year in the postseason, guarding LeBron and guarding Draymond Green in the postseason. And that's something that I'm keeping my eye on, is can Julius can the Wolves kind of tap into the best version of Julius Randle's defensive role without Jaden McDaniels, by scaling up what he's doing on that end, and focusing his role mostly on guarding guys who are bigger and have the ball in their hands more frequently, so that his off-ball defense isn't as much of a problem as we've seen it be over the course of this season. But yeah, I think it's a great spot for the Wolves to be able to be in. And as we've talked about on previous shows, I mean, the Wolves are certainly not a team that's scared to go on the road. So if they are the 5 or the 6 seed, I don't think the Wolves are going to be losing a whole lot of sleep over that. I think they just want to be able to be healthy and have their full complement of guys, entering round 1.
Parker, we've established you as the knee expert on this show, the knee doctor. Can you weigh in any more on the left knee tendinopathy / bone bruise for J-Mac?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I will weigh in on, and obviously every injury is different, and each guy has to go through their own thing, but I don't think this is an injury where Jaden is elevating and icing his leg and simply that's his only form of rehab. Like, I think this is an injury where he has to continue to get in the weight room, get with his trainers, and work this kind of stuff out. Anytime I was ever dealing with patellar tendon pain, it's a lot of iso holds, Spanish squat with bands around your knees. There's different types of slant board activities. It's all about getting your knee above your toe, and even walking down the stairs is something I'm kind of dealing with as residual pain from some of my patellar tendon stuff. So this isn't throw ice on it and let him hang out for a while. Like, this is a get Jaden in the training room, get him in the weight room, and getting moving through some range of motion and continuing to build up strength in that patellar tendon. That's something that I will say that I know that I dealt with through some patellar tendon stuff. And I think, if I'm right, I think that could be something that's encouraging for Wolves fans to know that, this isn't like he's sitting around doing nothing. As we've seen a lot of players come back from, type of injuries, and they don't have their game to a place that they want it to because they've been sitting out. I think this is an opportunity for Jaden to get his body healthy here, but still not lose the flow within a game. So I think taking time off is important, but I'm sure when his body is ready to do so, he will be out back on the court, just like Anthony Edwards was for the past couple of weeks, really prepping and getting ready to play games. So I think that's important, Sam. I think that's something that time-wise is you can't mimic being in an NBA basketball game. You can't mimic being out on the floor, the continuity that it takes with your teammates, just the environment that is an NBA playoffs. So that's something that I think could be really important. Who knows how long he's going to be gone? I'm hoping, obviously, for a shorter period of time as we possibly can. But I think that's something that we will need to continue to monitor. And when he's back out there, hopefully he doesn't skip a beat, because I think he's an important part. And I highlighted on Twitter yesterday. I got a lot of hate for it for some reason, but I highlighted on Twitter about how he's just an important part of what we want to do, as in the Timberwolves moving forward throughout this playoff push.
And you got hate for that take? Saying that J-Mac, he's like the third most important guy.
I know, and it's like, what did J-Mac do to you? Like, this is Jaden McDaniels. He seems like the nicest soul. Key and important part of our team. So nonetheless, I guess everybody is entitled to their own opinions, but I think Jaden's an important role for us.
Parker, on-air production, you just had like a blackout thing, and you disappeared for 2 seconds, but you're back, so it's all good. We will get into the top 100 list from The Ringer that dropped late last week. Wolves are heartily represented. We also are going to get into ESPN's kryptonite of the Timberwolves heading into the playoffs. That's coming up next on the Squad Show. We're brought to you today by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. Here's a stat that says it all. In the 1 minute we've been talking, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Again, less time searching, more time interviewing. Take the stress out. Find the right person with Indeed sponsored jobs. And if you're a listener of this show, you get $75 off a sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Go there now, support the show. Say you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsor jobs. Squad show rolls on, and Julia, I know you've got to depart early today, and you thought you were off the hook. But because the Timberwolves played the Mavs yesterday, I know you grew up with Daniel Gaffford. We got to get a Daniel Gaffford story. Just one. Just give us a little flavor.
Just a little flavor. I'll give you the two that I told you guys about. Daniel Gaffford and I don't know if we really interacted a ton. We grew up, we went to the same elementary school. He's a year behind me. And he was always taller and lankier. We're always like, that tall guy that he was very nerdy in elementary school. He loved like Pokemon and stuff like that. I think like that was kind of how everyone identified him as like, he's like taller than everyone else in his class, but then he like loves Pokemon, or I think it was Pokemon, something like that. But we're from a tiny, tiny town. In high school, there was an instance, I think it was my senior year, and Daniel's like, he's a huge recruit at this point. And he's walking down the hallway and he's over 7 feet tall already at this. And I'm 5'4" for reference. And he stepped on me in the hallway and like so hard that my shoe came off. But I think he's just so large. He just had no idea it happened. And I remember I was just pissed for the rest of the entire day. So I was like, no one has stepped on me in the hallway in this entire time I'm in high school. And you didn't even turn around. You didn't apologize or anything. But also I would send the guys, I found a memory from my Snapchat. We were hosting some swim party for my dance company, and then another dance company would always team up and do everything together. We were hosting a huge end of the season summer swim party at my house. And my dad went to the store and got all of these huge inflatables, and like 20 minutes into it, and he blew them all up. One of them was this huge beluga whale like blow up, and 20 minutes into the party, Daniel Gaffford and the rest of the entire basketball team are just like beating this whale up. I don't know why. I think just like 17-year-old boys just like to do stuff like that. And I found a video. I sent it to the guys. I thought it was so funny. I was like, I actually came across this the other day, surprisingly enough. But very small world, where there was like kind of the hopes. What was this, 2 years ago, that the Wolves would maybe trade for Gaffford before he went to Dallas. I was like, how crazy would that be if we ended up in the same market at the same time? That would be some small world stuff. But you guys have already seen me experience some small world things anyway. So
yeah, that's another good story for another show. Julia just knows people. She knows people. And I think that's the gist of it, is that you're well connected. That was a good story. Flagrant foul on Gaffford against the beluga whale. Foreshadowed his physicality in the post with the beluga. Julia, thank you for joining today. We appreciate it.
Yeah. See you guys later.
See you next time.
Julia.
Jack Parker and I will press on. The Ringer published the top 100, and honestly pleasantly surprised that 7 Timberwolves made the list. Every single member of their starting 5 was on the list. That would be Ant at 6, Julius at 40, Gobert at 44, McDaniels at 58, and DiVincenzo at 94. They also had Reid at 73, and Ayo sneaks in Mr. Irrelevant at number 100. I don't have the data on this. I can't imagine there's another team that's got 5 in the top 100. And I have a hard time imagining that there's a team with 7 in the top 100. I would have to go through it, piece by piece. But that honestly, it made me a little bit upset that with that much talent, they haven't gotten more out of this like window that they're in, and they've kind of underachieved this year with that much talent. I don't know how I felt about it, but I felt like the list was very generous to the Timberwolves, Jack.
Yeah, it definitely was. And I think, the reality is that the Timberwolves do have a lot of really talented individual pieces. And I think the challenging part with that is that they don't necessarily fit the best on paper sometimes. But I think, again, you have to think about too how cool it is that the Wolves have three of these guys that have been homegrown, and two of them in Jaden and Naz that were late first round pick in Jaden, and then undrafted Naz. Is cool to see their rise. I think I was kind of surprised that Rudy was as low as he was. I think that he probably deserves to be higher than Julius does. I think it's fair to say he's definitely had a better season than Julius has. And I was honestly surprised that Naz was as high as he was, just considering, I think that his name might be bigger than the impact that he's had, this season. And I think part of that might be, unfair recency bias with what he's playing through with his shoulder. But, I think the last part for me is just like, how huge was that Ayo Dosunmu trade that they were able to basically turn two guys that weren't getting any tick whatsoever with the Wolves into, a legitimate top 100 player who, if you made this list again in 2 months, maybe a lot higher than number 100, and a guy that I think more people are going to, recognize and come to understand as a really high level player because of the fact that he's on a team that is a quote unquote contender for the first time in his career as an NBA player. So really cool that I think the Wolves are getting this type of recognition. And I think kind of speaks to how talented this team is, despite, I think the Wolves being kind of an afterthought when you think about who the true title contenders are in the NBA this season.
Parker Fox, your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually, as Jack was giving you this analysis, I actually did quick deep dive. There was one team that did have 8. We were second with 7. I think it would be a pretty easy guess for you guys, but I'll save you the time. The Oklahoma City Thunder did have 8. Shea at 1, Chet 19, Jalen Williams 37, Isaiah Hartenstein 68, Caruso 74, Mitchell 79, Cason Wallace 80, and Lou Dort 86. So that's the only other team across the whole NBA. And Jack is dumbfounded maybe by that list, by his I don't know.
I don't know
Lou
who
Dort,
Jack
Lou
hates
Dort
more, the
making
Rockets
the
or
top
the
100
Thunder?
is crazy.
Lou Dort that's an interesting pick in there. That is a very interesting pick, but nonetheless, no, I think it shows, just like Jack said, it shows, and it's something that feel like I've been highlighting throughout this, the show is the depth of this Timberwolves team, and I think there's a lot of talent across the board. Tim Conley deserves a lot of credit for that. I think this coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for that. The player development deserves a lot of credit. So I think this is the Timberwolves team, as you continue to look across the future of this team, they're in a really good spot, contracts wise, the type of talent they have, the youthfulness of the roster. So I think there's a lot of positives that come from a list like this. Now, does it ultimately matter? No, you got to show up and you got to find ways to win championships. So I think that's something that Tim Conley knows, and he's continuing to construct rosters that can do that for him. But as you guys mentioned, the trade for Ayo Dosunmu, I think we completely knocked it out of the park with that. He's a guy that I think not only can continue to give us success now, but throughout the future. And I think he's a guy that you're going to look at from this front office, and you're going to say, how can we keep this guy in our roster, in our rotation, because he needs to be a key piece of this Timberwolves team moving forward. Now, if it comes down to money and if it comes down to things where you can't afford him, then so be it. But I can guarantee you that Tim Conley and his staff are doing everything they can to keep Ayo Dosunmu around for a long time.
Yeah, I believe you with that. I had no issue with where Ant was located on this list. I've got a really hard time generating a passionate take other than I think it's correct. He is behind SGA, Joker, Wemby, Luka, and Kawhi. Kawhi's having a 34-year-old renaissance.
Yeah.
Career high points per game right now at 28. So that, and he's going to play about 65 games too. Like that all makes sense to me. Ant is right above Giannis, Cade, Donovan Mitchell, and Steph Curry. Curry in the twilight and hurt. I think that number 6 was correct. Jack, you agree with that?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I think when you take a look at the list of guys, I think part of it too is just like the consistency factor that goes into it, and I think that I certainly think that Ant still has a ways to go to be able to catch guys like Kawhi and Wemby and Jokic and SGA. I think Luka has obviously been insane this year, and so I think it's fair to put Luka above Ant, just considering the numbers are pretty staggering. But I think when you put those two guys head to head last year and how they played in the playoffs, I think Ant certainly won that battle, and so I think that would be the only guy that maybe you could put him above. But I've got absolutely no qualms with that. I think he's definitively better at this point than pretty much everybody that was below him. And it's just pretty cool that the Wolves have just a top flight 1A superstar that the rest of the league looks at and respects that much.
Parker, any takes off Timberwolves on this list? Anything else that popped out to you? You said something before the show. I can't remember what it was.
There is a couple. There's definitely a couple. One thing I did want to highlight is just the big position. I think that's something that, as we've kind of transitioned through this NBA, we've become so guard centric. But I do think the bigs were highlighted well, and I think rightfully so. Even Chet Holmgren kind of cracking that top 20. Jalen Duran, a guy that I watched live in action, although he didn't play great against the Timberwolves last game, but he's become an all-star in his own right. And then, as we mentioned, Rudy Gobert kind of sitting at that 44 mark right there. I love it's kind of a new style big when you're including guys like Lauri Markkanen and some of these other guys. I don't know if they're true bigs. But the one that and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I haven't watched much Bucks basketball, but the fact that Ryan Rollins cracks this list, is that a name that I'm completely wrong on? Like, I'm lost there, Jack. Maybe you could help me out with the whole Ryan Rollins bit.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Rollins had a really, really good start to the season and went kind of bananas from three and was averaging in the low to mid 20 points per game in the first couple months of the season. Has really fallen off since then,
Okay.
and I think part of that too has coincided with Giannis being out. But I think it's fair to see the hype with him. But do I think he's a top 100 player at this point, given the lack of consistency without Giannis? I don't know.
Fair enough.
One spot above Lou Dort. Right there with Lou Dort, your guy.
That does it for Jack right there.
I also was pleasantly surprised. I just love how this list is very reflective of the current zeitgeist, and it's not resting on anything really from the past. Like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, number 57.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Good for Nickeil. He's been unbelievable this year in Atlanta, one spot above Jaden. And it's cool to see Jaden. Like, he's 2 spots above Dylan Brooks. He's 3 spots above Trae Young. I think that's reflective of the current climate and momentum of Jaden McDaniels' career, with the three-point shooting rise and ascension that he's had now up to 44%. I think that's a really good number. So pretty cool stuff from the Ringer. Wolves get 7 of the top 100. Got to say, though, I disagree with this recent ESPN story that we'll get into next about the Wolves' kryptonite. Brought to you today by TurboTax. April's tomorrow. My taxes aren't done. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth, wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Final segment, Wolves Squad Show. Wolves have Detroit coming up next. A lot of time off, actually, right now for the Timberwolves. A lot of days in between games. Upcoming schedule for Minnesota. I don't think they play again until beyond our next show. That next game is on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. I'm fat-fingering the app. I'm not able to get it up. Pistons, 76ers, Hornets, Pacers, Magic, Rockets, Pelicans is how the Timberwolves close. ESPN published a story about the kryptonite for every contender. So Wolves are considered a contender. Cool. They say that the bench scoring is their kryptonite. And if you're writing this on January 28th, I get it. I get it. But in light of how they reconstructed the bench, I'll give you the numbers. Timberwolves in the month of March, their bench was 15th in the league. For the season, it's 23rd. And actually, if you look at their likely playoff opponents in the West, the Rockets have the worst bench in the NBA, 30th in terms of scoring. The Lakers are 29th. The Nuggets are 21st. And the Timberwolves moved that thing up to 15th in the month of March, which ends today. They're 3 points behind the Thunder and the Spurs in bench scoring. So I would heartily disagree with that assessment post-trade deadline. Pre-trade deadline, sure. Not now. Not with Ayo, Parker. It feels like that's a little bit of a January take.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's also a thing where you got to look at is well, who's leading it, right? Like you have to. I think that's something you got to continue to look at. And I would say, and I don't have the numbers up in front of me, but I would say probably not the greatest teams are necessarily leading it. Like are playoff type of finals teams leading that number? Is that something that we have on the top of our hands? I hate to put the pressure on you guys there, but
I can get it. Just talk for a minute, or Jack.
Yeah. So no, I think it's something where you look at what this Wolves team is kind of constructed, and I love where we're at. Like I mentioned, the depth, and I think it's something where Naz Reid, I think, is a big factor here, right? Like he's supposed to be our sixth man of the year. He's a six-man type of guy. And I think it can be an asset for us. I truly do. But there's also nights that I see from Naz where he isn't the version of himself that he needs to be from us. You look at that Detroit game at home, he was completely uninterested, couldn't make a shot, even if he wanted to, was complaining with the refs too much, just spending time not using his minutes to help the betterment and impact winning. So I think if you're the Timberwolves, you have to look at who you're bringing off the bench. And Naz is a guy we got to continue to trust. He can shoot the ball at a high clip, but he has to give us the right and correct good minutes. And then you go down to a guy like Bones Highland, who's been balling, but there's a little inconsistency to his game. I think that's something that if you're the Timberwolves, what version of Bones Highland are you getting on a night-to-night basis? And we've highlighted Ayo enough today, but I think it's correct in what we're getting from Ayo is something that is consistent right now, and he's playing the game the right way. He's impacting the game the right way. And then you kind of go down the list with a guy like Kyle Anderson, who can give you a couple of minutes here or there. What is Terrence Shannon, Jalen Clark giving to you on the defensive end? Is that more valuable than the points that are being scored? So I guess you guys can hit me with the nerdy stats, but I think from a perspective of where we're at, I like what our bench is doing. I think it can be an asset for this Timberwolves team.
Yeah, Jack, you probably have it too, but this is for March. Number one in March bench scoring is Brooklyn. Who cares? Cross them off the list. Doesn't matter. Washington is second. They are not trying to win. The Clippers are the number one bench unit for a team that gives a crap. Then you got the Pacers and the Grizzlies, the Bulls, cross them out. The Warriors are all banged up. Mavericks don't care. Bucks don't care. So of the top nine, you got one legitimate team.
Yeah. So basically what I was trying to get to was correct, is you're not going to crack a top 10 if you're a true finals type of contender. So does this stat really matter? I don't know. I'm not saying it doesn't. But I do think that as long as the production you're getting from your bench is consistent and it's in line with what you want to do as a team, then great. But if not, then I think you're in a position where, Chris Finch is calling those quick timeouts to get the guys together and get the right guys in the game that need to be out there. So, I don't know if I love the exact stat, but nonetheless, I think you got to have the right guys out on the floor. And I love that we highlighted, or Jack highlighted, the fact that Ayo could be one of those guys. Maybe, matchups depend on it. But I would love to see the way Ayo's playing right now. I would love to see him on the court in the closing minutes. I think you always, when you're playing basketball, it doesn't matter if you're the starter. You want to be there at the end of the game because that's the guy that's playing well and is impacting the team's winning ability.
Jack, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I honestly think that it's a fair critique, but I don't know that I'd package it in saying that the kryptonite is bench production. I think the way that I would put it is that how is the scoring going to shake out beyond Anthony Edwards? And I think the Timberwolves beyond Anthony Edwards have been remarkably inconsistent for the better part of this entire season. In that, do you confidently know who's going to be the number 2 scorer on a night-to-night basis? Like, I don't think you do. And
Probably
I think
Julius,
but you don't know. Like, you don't know what Julius you're necessarily going to get, and
right.
maybe you get a Julius that is more of a playmaker and only has, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, that type of thing. But then who steps up beyond that? And I think if I were to take a different angle to it, I think another kryptonite for the Wolves is just some of the lineups that they put out there. Just don't make sense for 2 or 3 minutes, and you could kind of say to yourself, I don't really understand why they have this collection of 5 guys out on the floor at this time, and then they give up a 10-0 run or an 8-0 run or something like that can kind of flip a game. So I think for the Wolves, my biggest kryptonite or critique would just basically be, how are they going to manage the rotation and what lineups are they going to get to a point where it totally craters their offense or craters their defense for, these 2-3 minute spurts that can flip a game.
And I think with that too quickly, Sam, is end of game execution, I think, is something that if you looked back to that Phoenix game where we completely dropped the ball at the end of the game, like that matters more than what your bench is giving you, right? Like throughout a game, the coach's staff job is to put the guys on the court that they can best think help the team win. And at the end of the game, you want the 5 players that throughout that game you think can help the team win. I think that's something where that comes down to the coaching staff. And I think end of game execution is something that's going to be huge throughout this playoff push. And if you're a team that wants to continue to win games throughout the playoffs, you not only have to play, the 48 minutes, but you really got to dominate down the stretch. That's winning time. And I think having the right guys on the court matters. It doesn't matter if you started on the bench. You got to put the guys out there that are going to help you win the game.
Yeah, and Finch has shown a very indiscriminate quality with that. I think back 4 years ago now when he benched D'Angelo Russell in the playoffs, and I think he played Jordan McLaughlin instead. Have we in recent years, Jack, I know there's been the regular season lineup gripes. Has Finch yielded or merited much criticism for this in playoff situations? Because I'm trying to recall if that's been a real knock, like in that OKC series or the Mavs series, and I can't really get there just because of how poorly it seemed like the whole team played in those series.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair pushback, and I think that I would not disagree with your assertion whatsoever. I think that Chris Finch and how he manages things over the course of the regular season, it probably comes from a place of like, how can I keep all these guys rowing in the same direction for as long as possible, right? And that, once you get to the postseason, maybe you don't worry about ruffling feathers as much because, your season is quite literally on the line. But, I still think that it'll be interesting to see, if they end up playing a team like Denver, right? And Julius is just getting kind of getting killed by Aaron Gordon or Jokic. Like, would you consider sitting him so the Wolves can go small and put Ayo and Jaden and Ant and Nas and Rudy out there to go with, a huge, it's those types of things. Or if Rudy is just not providing much value on the offensive end of the floor and you're still getting torched defensively, do you go, small that way and take Rudy off the floor? I think that, Finch has been a guy that's been willing to make those decisions in the postseason. And I guess my comment wasn't so much aimed at taking those guys off the floor in the fourth quarter, but it's more of like hey, if you're going to, for 2 minutes or 3 minutes in the third quarter, put a lineup out there that has, Mike and Slow-Mo and, Nas and Julius, where there's just not a whole lot of spacing or scoring potential, and you lose 10-2, like that can kind of flip a game. So I think it's more within the flow of the game, and I definitely trust Finch to have who he deems are the right guys out there at the end of games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rap Stallion's asking this in the chat, and I wanted to get to this too. Temperature check as of today, March 31st, Parker. It's looking like a 5 or 6 seed's very much a reality. Going to be hard to get that 4. How do you feel as the road team, not having home court? You feel better going up against the Lakers or the Nuggets as of today?
Yeah, I mean, we highlighted on a couple episodes ago about the importance. I mean, I highlighted it of the importance of home court. Jack kind of took the counter argument there, and but nonetheless, I think we're in a position where we're probably not going to get it right now, and I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to be scared of that. The Jaden situation scares me maybe a little bit more than home and away does, just because when you look at the two teams that you mentioned, Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets, I think Jaden's an important piece of what you want to do defensively. Luka stopper. I don't want to say that because no one's really a Luka stopper, but make it a little bit more difficult on Luka with his length. I think that's something that's important. And then if it's a team like Denver, you're talking about Jamal Murray, and we've seen the impact that Jaden can have on a Denver series. It's been something that has definitely been highlighted over the years about his intensity that it comes to when he plays Dallas, and his offensive game has flourished. And I mean, sorry, Denver, and his offensive game has flourished, and it's something that scares me. That aspect scares me a little bit more. But if I were to pick a team that I would want to play, I'd probably. And it's crazy that I'm saying this because if you asked me a couple of weeks ago, I would have definitely had the counter. I think Denver's a team I want to play right now. I'm scared of Luka. I'll admit it. I'm scared of what he can be offensively. I think LeBron's been playing really well recently, kind of finding his role a little bit as on the defensive end and his passing ability. And Austin Reeves in a position now where he's finishing out his contract here in LA, and he's playing with house money. He's trying to get himself paid as well. So you add in their kind of their complementary pieces. It just scares me a little bit more. And it's crazy that I'm saying that with Nikola Jokic on Denver's roster. But I just think we've had their number. I think our roster construction can match what they want to do. So I think if I'm in a position right now, I'd be okay being that 5 seed and seeing Denver at the 4, stealing one in Denver, and then hopefully coming home and getting both of them.
This is a real toss-up for me, Jack. I think that Denver's injuries make their struggles a little more deceiving. It's harder to interpret who they are. The Lakers seem more formidable than last year with a Luka that's a little more in shape, a little more cohesive, probably a touch deeper than last year. Not too much, but a little more, adding a little bit at the deadline. I still think I prefer LA by a hair because of the way they actually took a pretty good shot from the Lakers in a handful of those games and withstood it. So I would lean LA, but you could convince me otherwise too.
Yeah, I would also go with LA. And part of the reason why I would go with LA is you can kind of draw upon what the Timberwolves did last year, right? In that they relentlessly attacked Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves on the defensive end of the floor. And I think that the Lakers don't have anybody that can guard Anthony Edwards. And the Wolves have the defenders in isolation to be able to guard Luka and Austin Reeves and LeBron. And I think, DeAndre Ayton is a guy that Rudy Gobert matches up really well against. And I just don't really think the Lakers are all that deep. And I think that the Lakers are asking an awful lot of 41-year-old LeBron James and 32-year-old Marcus Smart, who's had all sorts of injuries over the course of his career. And I think the Wolves did a great job of taking away some of the Lakers' ancillary pieces, last season, especially Rui Hachimura. And I think that there's just a lot there for the Wolves to be able to kind of attack. And I think too, it's a team that the Wolves, for my money, would be able to get up and down the court on and force turnovers and get out and run against as well. And I think, an argument for playing Denver would just be, that they're, significantly less healthy than LA is. But I still think that their two best players are significantly better than the Lakers' two best players in a vacuum. And you have two guys on their team that are completely capable of taking over a game and just having a magnet ball shooting performance where everything they shoot is going in, and you just feel completely helpless. And I think, especially with Cam Johnson kind of rounding into form more, we've seen what Tim Hardaway can do, Peyton Watson coming back and just playing with more confidence over the course of this season. I just think that they're a significantly deeper team than the Lakers are. And I think that it's much tougher to deal with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray than it is to deal with Luka Doncic and whichever one you think is better between 41-year-old LeBron James and Austin Reeves.
Yeah, going to be a battle. Playoffs in a couple weeks. Can't wait. Squad Show back on Thursday. Parker Fox, Jack Borman, thanks for your contributions. I'm Sam Ekstrom. We are on the Locked On Wolves YouTube channel. We are on the Locked On Wolves podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks a lot for watching, listening, commenting, subscribing, and we will talk to you next time.